Hi, and welcome to our Justice on the Block with two very important people with Legal Services of North Florida. My name is Charlotte Waters, Communications Manager for Legal Services of North Florida, and we have Stephanie Johnson, Senior Attorney in our Tallahassee office at LSNF, and Cheryl Sattler, Education Advocate with Legal Services of North Florida. Before we begin, we just like to let everyone know that this video provides legal information and should not be considered legal advice. This video does not create an attorney-client relationship or substitute legal advice you have been given. You may have defenses that we haven't discussed here, so it's important to seek out an attorney if you have legal questions. For more information about LSNF, please go to www.lsnf.org or call us at 850-385-9007. Thank you again for joining us today. And I'm going to hand it off to our senior attorney, Stephanie Johnson.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, Cheryl, we have a lot of families in our area who are losing their housing due to the pandemic. Are there any protections in place that allow their children to stay at their school if they have to move?
You know, Steph, this is becoming such an important issue. And yes, there are protections, which is a really great thing. Because, you know, when you move, everything gets disrupted. You have to find a new grocery store. You have to figure out new routes to work. Everything changes. And fortunately, because of a federal law called the McKinneyVento Homeless Education Assistance Act, kids actually don't have to get their education disrupted, which is a really helpful thing. And so, you know, it sounds like kind of an odd thing, right? Homeless education. And even though you're losing your home, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to live under a bridge, which would be really good to not live under a bridge since it's really cold right now. So it's important for people to understand that this particular law, the McKinney-Vento law, looks at homelessness with a really broad definition. So you have to have special circumstances, right? But if you happen to be like moving out of your home because you've been evicted or because you can't afford the rent and you move in with like family or friends, maybe you're living in a trailer on someone else's property, you still can count as homeless for purposes of this particular law.
Great. So it sounds like what you're saying is the McKinney-Vento law would allow children to stay at their, what we call their home zone school, the school they were in before their placement disrupted. What should parents think about when they're trying to make that decision of, do they try to keep their kid in the school they're currently in, or do they change schools to wherever they were displaced to?
Well, you know, I guess there's really two different ways to think about it, because right now we've got kind of two different ways that kids are in school, right? Because if they're in school on the computer, it's one thing, and you really don't have to worry too much about distances and whatever. But if you happen to move like to the other end of Leon County, or perhaps, you know, you're moving, it really matters. You don't want your kid to be on the bus for, you know, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. And having gone on a long bus ride, I can tell you, you know, you can get homework done, but then maybe some other things occur. In general, it's really important that kids stay in the school where they are. Every time a kid changes schools, they lose a lot of time. There's sort of literal time where you have to go to the new school and sign them up and fill out the new paperwork. But there's also all these sort of other things that go with that. Learning a new teacher and how they grade. Maybe you have different textbooks. Maybe you're using different computer programs. You lose your friends that are in that first school. And all of those things just take away from the sort of mental space that kids have for learning. And so, and unless it's a really, really long distance, in general, the best thing is to just, for the rest of that school year, keep your student where they were when you moved.
Right, that makes sense. And so how do parents and caregivers access the McKinney-Vento protections?
Well, you know, there's always hoops, right? Because it's a school system. But in general, what you want to do is let the school know what's going on with you. So you can talk to the registrar, you can talk to the front desk person. Every school has a McKinneyVento person. And sometimes what that person will do is send you to the district office. That's fine, but they're sort of your link to this law. And so they'll ask you some questions. You know, where are you living? What's changed? The big deal is whether you're just moving because it's convenient. You know, I love my grandmother and I want to live with her because it's hard in this COVID time. Or I'm moving in with grandma because I can't afford rent on my own. And so it sounds like they're going to be a little bit in your business, but it's a good thing because if you do qualify, you can guarantee that stability for your child. And then also there's other resources that kick in if you then qualify.
Okay. And so you had mentioned this a little bit. So my child is now going to a school on the south side. I'm losing my housing because I lost my job due to COVID, so I'm being evicted. And I'm moving in with a friend who lives on the north side. There's no way I'm going to be able to transport my child back to the south side for school every day. So how does that work?
You know, that is one of the best things about McKinneyVento is the district is responsible in that situation for putting your kid on a bus and getting them to their original school. You know, they have to figure it out. And sometimes that means that your kid might, you know, ride one bus to the sort of new school and then they'll take them from that school to the old school. It's not always as straightforward as you'd like, but it's their responsibility. You do not have to figure it out. They have to, and they have to figure it out right away. They can't make you wait around while they, you know, say, well, bus schedules are difficult, blah, blah, blah. Well, so what? In this case, it doesn't matter. So that's a really big relief for a lot of parents because transporting your kid, you know, twice a day, that can really get old and use up gas too.
Right. All right. So other than keeping my kid at my child's school, are there any other protections or services that McKinneyVento provides?
Yeah, actually, McKinneyVento is basically the whole point of this law is to make sure that a child who qualifies, so they're homeless under this large definition, has access to everything about school that any other child would have access to. So if that means that you can't afford a school uniform, McKinneyVento can provide that. If that means that you need to have clothes that, you know, are within the dress code, they can help you with that. They can help you with toiletries. They can give your child counseling, sometimes academic supports. It's pretty wide open. You know, things that you might not even think of, band instruments, graduation gowns, things like that, because the whole big deal is to make sure that there's nothing that prevents a homeless child from achieving and being fully involved in school just in every conceivable way. And so you just have to know to ask.
Okay. This is super helpful and super timely, Cheryl, because we know there's a ton of families facing upheaval due to the pandemic. So this is great information. We are going to, in our comments, we're going to put 2 sites in there. One site will allow parents and caregivers to put in their home zone school, and it'll tell you who the homeless liaison is with your school. And then the second site is to the state McKinneyVento liaison. So if you're not getting really quick service from your school's homeless liaison, you can email or go to the state homeless liaison for help.
It's not only if you're not getting quick support. I mean, we're all working remotely. People change jobs. And so, you know, we can't guarantee that the information is 100% accurate. We don't want to leave you hanging. So the state people generally know, oh yeah, so-and-so retired and it's such and such now. So just one more way for you to get there.
Okay, and so that will be coming up on the comments very soon. And I just wanted to say that we have this education series, and we're going to be coming to you on the second Wednesday of every month for the next couple of months. And we'd like for you to join us for next month. We're going to be doing a segment on getting educational services for children who have disabilities. And so that's a real good one. And then we also have a education segment on English language, kids who have issues with English language learning issues and discipline issues. So I thank you, Cheryl.
Steph, if they have questions, is there a way that they can, I think there's a way that they can ask them of us, and everybody's situation is so different. And we really, this is kind of the information you can start with, but we're happy to help you move forward. So please don't hesitate.
Right. Well, we'll have people monitoring the chat, and then if questions do come up, we can address them either at our next educational session, or if there's something that's really interesting, we can also add another educational session onto the back of the program.
Hey, Steph, I want to say one thing, and this comes up a lot. There's a real stigma to the word homeless. And in fact, some schools and school districts don't even use that word because they're trying to take down that barrier to people accessing these services. So there are a lot of people in this position, and there is nothing to be ashamed about. And this help is here specifically for people who need it. And I just want to be really clear, don't for a second hesitate to ask for this help just because it means that somebody's going to use the H word about your child. I mean, this is way more important. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, everybody.